Welcome to today's Advisor's Assistant guest speaker webinar with efficiency expert Dr. David Lawrence. Dr. Lawrence is founder and president of Efficient Practice, a consulting firm that provides financial practices, broker-dealers, and independent firms with comprehensive, profit-driven efficiency consulting and resources. Hello, Dave.
Hi, Shannon.
We'll be giving you information at the end of the webinar on how to contact Dave directly. Having seen his work firsthand, we can assure you that he is truly thorough and efficient. He'll be happy to work with you to analyze your practice to be sure that you're running at peak efficiency. Today he's going to show you how you can use technology to grow your practice and your profits. So without wasting any more time, I'm going to pass the controls over to Dave. So take it away, Dave.
Hopefully you can see my screen. And thank you, Shannon, and welcome to everyone to this first of a series of webinars sponsored by Advisor's Assistant. I'm Dave Lawrence. You may know me as a featured monthly columnist and contributing editor at Financial Advisor magazine also. I want to start by giving you a quote. If you always do what you have always done, you'll always get what you always got. The definition of insanity, one definition, is doing things over and over again the exact same way, expecting different results. So what we're going to explore today is an alternative to that. Several years ago, I identified something called the profit-driven architecture. It looks at 4 areas of a financial practice's operations with an eye toward increasing the efficiency in each of those areas. The 4 areas are management, technology, process, and design. And if all we did was increase the efficiency in each of those 4 areas, in my opinion, it would not be enough. You need to look at these 4 areas holistically to ensure that you reach the highest levels of efficiency, productivity, and net profitability. Having said that, I'm going to focus to start with on technology efficiency. Technical systems efficiency or technology efficiency is when all of your technology such as computers, software, printers, scanners, servers, website, email, phone systems, mobile systems, messaging systems, and in-office communication systems are all working together, communicate with each other, and share data seamlessly and perhaps most importantly, transparently to the client. And in trying to understand and get our arms around what this technology puzzle really is, I've developed a graphic that is coming up on your screen now that shows the various areas that are important in the technology puzzle. And if you'll notice, there are a number of different areas such as strategic business planning, employee management, employee workflow accounting, hypothetical illustrations, investment research, trading platforms, financial planning, portfolio management. At the head of it all is a client relationship management solution. These constitute the relationship between hardware, software, and systems. And I've placed the client relationship management solution at the head of the list here because it should be the linchpin that connects all of these divergent elements from a technology perspective. And with that in mind, I want to talk a little bit about some of that technology, one of which is websites. There are new ways in which websites can be utilized to greatly enhance the use of the website, not only with your clients, but also with prospects coming to your site for the very first time. As an example, someone coming to your website for the very first time might be confronted with graphics and other elements that attract them to who you are and what you do. I'm going to show you some examples in a minute of how not to do that, but quite honestly, there are a number of ways of enhancing the website, one of which is utilizing something called Web 2.0 technology. The Web 2.0 type technology is an interactive element where in some cases, depending on the vendor or the website hosting service, they may be able to develop a small cookie, very non-threatening type cookie, that when a client reaches your website, it places a cookie on their computer, so the next time they visit the website, the custom content will be configured on that homepage to match their interests. This is a big departure from having a website where everybody sees the same thing every single time they go on. It also lessens the amount of work that might be done by the firm in keeping up with that technology. But along with that has to be a branding and differentiation strategy. Branding and differentiation is a way in which you can remove yourself from the sea of sameness, if you will, that seems to permeate the financial services industry. Websites all seem to look alike. They all seem to say the same things. I've lost track over the last many years of how many times I have visited websites of companies who use the word strategic either in their name or in a message directly below their name. And this is not differentiating you from the others that are out there. So consequently, we'll talk a little bit about how you can increase the compellingness of your website through a branding and differentiation strategy. Let me show you some examples. This is an actual website of a gentleman, a certified financial planner, actually in Tampa, Florida. And although this is a terrific guy, he offers an amazing service to his clients, you would never know it by looking at his website. And I'm picking on him a little bit here. He's a friend of mine, so I feel like I can do that. And Randy's site is really in dire need of increasing the compelling content. You can say a lot more with imagery than you can with words, putting a lot of words on a website. Studies have shown that when someone visits the website, you have somewhere between 18 to 20 seconds to capture the attention and drive their interest to the point to where they would be willing to go beyond that home page. If they're having to scroll down, if they're having to focus on small print, and if there are little or no images that they can relate to, it's not likely they're going to stay with that website. They're going to hit the back button and look for another one. Here's another example. Again, no imagery, a bunch of words, doesn't really differentiate them from others in the marketplace, and consequently it's a boring site. This company is probably a very good company, and they have a high set of ethics as reflected in their philosophy. However, they're not communicating that effectively. This is a little bit better site. Again, this is another friend of mine, Fred Forbes, who's in Florida. And Fred is using what I sometimes refer to as a templated site. Templated sites are those sites offered by companies such as Advisor Websites, Live Office, Advisor Products, Smarsh, Emerald, and a few other companies out there that offer templates where you go in, you pick a template, you pick the various menu items, and off you go, and you're up and running. And these can be utilized in a way that provides compelling differentiation messaging. However, it takes a little bit of creativity in order to get them to that point. Otherwise, they're all going to look like the guy down the street. So you have to be careful when you're using these types of templated sites. Let me show you one that we worked on a couple of years ago, and I'm going to show you the before and after look. The before look looks like this. It was driven by stock market content, imagery of investment performance, and nothing for a client to relate to in terms of their life or their future after having worked with this particular company. So we changed that imagery, and here's what it looks like now. The new website, offered through the same website provider, provides much more compelling visuals. It's all about the client. It's not about investment performance. It's about the future of that client and his family. That tells you in a matter of seconds way more than what it told you in that before picture. and is definitely in the category, in my opinion, of compelling. But beyond just the look of the website, there are things that can be added and utilized within a website. We go all over the United States working with financial practices. One of the things that we've noticed is that many practices set up a website but then fail to follow up with it and see what kind of content within the website is actually being viewed. With the right kind of tracking software, and there are usually tracking softwares built and available through a website provider, but there's also standalone services such as Google Analytics and others where you can determine not only when they visit the site, how long they're in that particular page on a site, or whether there's a page or two within your website that's not even being looked at all. This helps you to craft and continue to mold the website to provide compelling content and drive the interest level of your clients and prospects much higher. And they call that pull technology. The push technology might be traditional things like electronic ticker tapes or scrolling banners, podcasts, RSS feeds, really simple syndication feeds, and of course that Web 2.0 technology I mentioned before. We also believe in the technology category that your client database should have more interactivity in terms of how the information is processed throughout the firm. Client emails, for instance, should be tied to the client relationship management database. Phone records should also be tied to that database, and detailed notes from client meetings dated and entered into the database. In a little while, I'll show you a solution to do that very, very efficiently. Relentless pursuit of accuracy, obviously one of the key aspects of maintaining a client database, and should be pursued. Some other issues such as that the CRM or client relationship management database can easily share data with other software such as financial planning software, asset allocation software, through some sort of an integration or a field mapping technique that allows that information to be as much as possible typed only once and then seamlessly transferred from one software solution to another. Phone logs that can be auto-entered into the CRM database are also a time and efficiency gain. Scanned documents available to clients via a website such as a lockbox type concept. And this has a couple of elements to it. Not only are you able to do electronic delivery of quarterly statements, for instance, but the client can store documents on their own in that lockbox that would be very beneficial to them. As an example, having your passport and visas in the lockbox should you lose your passport or visa while traveling overseas, and I have been unfortunately party to that in the past. It can take up to a week to get it reissued through the United States Embassy unless you have a copy. And the copy, if available, could be downloaded at any internet cafe, brought to the U.S. Embassy, and 48 hours later you've got your visa and or passport. These are things that are value adds to the client that can be included with a fairly low cost. And certainly you can use the lockbox also as a collaboration tool to collaborate with clients or other professionals. Some of the web-based solution providers that are out there, certainly Advisor's Assistant at the top of the list, MoneyGuide Pro, Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, and so on and so forth. However, many of these you have to take into account what the cost factors might be of integrating data versus the ease of being able to do it. Advisor's Assistant have gone to great lengths, in my opinion, to provide solutions for integration of data and are certainly at the top of my list when it comes to ease of creating that environment. Voice-to-text services. This is what I was talking about a while ago. Whether you use CopyTalk or Mobile Assistant, either of those have the ability to capture what you say when you leave a meeting through a cell phone or other way of communicating to them, and then it gets transcribed by a live transcriptionist and then emailed to your office. In the case of Mobile Assistant, that can actually be deposited directly into your Advisor Assistant client record, and then viewed by a staff member or used accordingly. So real time saver from the standpoint of not having to remember what you thought or said in the meeting once you get back to the office, and so on and so forth. Social media is certainly one of the biggest issues that are confronting advisors today. There's a number of issues associated with social media. FINRA addressed this issue with Regulatory Notice 10-06 in September of 2009. They organized a task force to deal with that, and basically the result was a set of guidelines that included record-keeping responsibilities, suitability responsibilities, and supervision of social media sites such as third-party posts, etc. The SEC has also addressed this issue, and frankly, there are very effective ways of being able to use social media to advance the message you're trying to get out into the community. There are some compliance concerns, and depending on whether you are an independent advisor or associated with a broker-dealer or custodian that may have some compliance issues surrounding it, there are ways in which you can truncate, for instance, the use of Facebook or others so that you do not run into compliance difficulties. The real issue, though, with social media, in my opinion, is keeping up with it. It's a work effort to constantly be monitoring what's going on with the social media and to ensure that the message is relevant and timely. And some firms have shied away from that because of that additional workload. However, there are some solutions out there now that could address that issue. One of them is a company called Voxox. And Voxox does a collation of all different kinds of communications, not just your social media, but certainly social networking is part of it. You can also communicate voice, text messaging, instant messaging, video calling, file sharing, email, fax, all of it coordinated through this one source, which means you have only to go to one place to make changes or to monitor what's going on with all of your social media and other communications methodologies. It's an efficiency boost, in my opinion. And certainly we would have to acknowledge that there has been significant changes to technology over the years. I began in this career in 1984, and in fact that computer you see in the lower left was one of the first computers that we ever used. It's amazing what has happened since. And today we have even more powerful and greater storage on something as small as a smartphone than I had on that very first IBM PCXT that I owned in 1984. So it's amazing what's occurred since that time, and the smartphone technology is certainly not standing on its laurels. There are new solutions coming out almost every week. Tablet computers. The tablet computer revolution has taken place and is now very much a factor in the financial services arena. iPads are very, very popular. However, I would want to draw your attention to a new entry in that marketplace from Microsoft called the Microsoft Surface Tablet PC. The reason why is one of the biggest issues that we confront with an iPad is the ability to edit documents that are produced through a Microsoft Office type program. Microsoft Surface Tablet PC uses the Windows 8 platform, which is fully capable of supporting Microsoft Office and can be linked with outside or external storage solutions as well as cloud-based storage, so that you have a more business-oriented tablet, if you will. And even though iPad is a fun and interesting thing to use and it has many great features to it, Microsoft Surface may emerge as a more useful tool from an office use standpoint. There are portable storage solutions. External hard drives are available now with terabytes of information. It's amazing how this has grown. The tablet that I showed you a minute ago from Microsoft does have a USB port, whereas the iPad does not and will not. And this could be used in that instance. Some portability issues for those of you who are operating as remote advisors, advisors that meet with clients outside of the office. There are more and more tools coming out now that allow you to be able to process data on site, on scene with your client while they're sitting there. This is one of those types of solutions. There's several others, frankly. Iriscan Express 2 is a highly portable USB-connected color scanner. Other brands include things like Neat Receipts, which has certainly gotten more press, Canon, HP, and Visioneer. And the prices are roughly, in the same category. Some paperless filing systems. I am a personal lover of the Fujitsu products simply because of the speed and accuracy. One of the things about this particular Fujitsu is that, yes, it's fast at 40 sheets a minute. That's outrageously fast. But at the same time, from a compliance standpoint, it can include a post-imprint symbol on the back side of an original so that you can endorse that it has been scanned and that it is in fact an original. Indexing and storage, certainly with Advisor's Assistant, there are many ways in which you can store documents using a variety of different document management solutions. And if you're not using Advisor's Assistant and you're using some other kind of CRM software, you still have access to some of those solutions. For the remote advisor that wants to show a presentation, this is a neat little tool. It's a brand new 3M pocket projector. It'll throw up about a 3-foot screen on any surface. Now on this particular slide I am showing a micro screen that folds down to a small case. However, you could show it against a wall, and it's cost effective, and I happen to own one of these and they're very, very clever. The entire PowerPoints can be stored, and it's battery driven, so you don't even need a plug to plug it in, and you can show a presentation if you're doing a new client presentation, for instance, in their home or office. This makes it very useful. Online collaboration is another issue, of course. We talked about that a little while ago, and web conferencing is part of that. Go to my meeting, Live Office IM conferencing. I'm an efficiency expert, so consequently I look for low-cost solutions whenever I can. Macogo is free. I like free. Free is good, and free is something that attracts me when in fact it works well. Macogo is similar to GoToMyMeeting or others, except for the fact that it is in fact free. Lockbox technology, one of the newest elements out there is something called Elevate CDS. You might want to check that out. It's a pretty good service and state-of-the-art cloud-based storage with some collaboration features. Podcasting is available from a number of website providers such as Live Office and Advisor Products and others. And document sharing is certainly very prevalent throughout the technology industry. Such solutions as Google Documents, Microsoft Office Live, even that Elevate CDS that I mentioned earlier has the ability to share documents. Let's move on to talking about the cloud. Some people are a little afraid of the cloud. They may be afraid of it for a variety of reasons. One of which might be that they're concerned about the security issues. However, so long as you have an SSL encryption solution with SAS70 Type 2 encryption or better, or an advanced encryption standard of 256-bit encryption, which is near military standards, chances are you'll be okay. Questions to ask are, do they have redundant backups? Are there multiple locations? Are they geographically diverse? And where are those geographical locations? Are they in India, or are they in the United States, or where exactly are they? And those are the kind of questions you want to ask when you're looking into cloud-based storage systems. Let's move on to process and procedure, which I believe is one of the key issues in improving the efficiency of a financial services practice. And development of a workflow management system is the linchpin of that. Several years ago, I was working with a practice in Florida. That practice consisted of an owner and about 7 employees. And when I walked into the principal's office, the principal of the firm, I noticed a 10-minute egg timer sitting on his desk. And I asked what that was, and he said, "Oh, that's my workflow management system." And I cringed, but I said, "Okay, how's that work?" And he said, "Well, I turn it over, and when 10 minutes is up, no matter what I'm doing, even if I'm sitting with a client, I get up from my desk and go around each one of my employees to see what they're doing and to see what I can do to help them." Unbelievable. And I can tell you that the employees did not share his enthusiasm for that system. Quite frankly, when we looked at the firm in more detail, we discovered he was having about a 50% annual employee turnover rate. 3 to 4 employees were leaving, and several of the ones that were left were looking for work. It was because of his tendency to micromanage. Part of it was because he hadn't embraced a workflow management system or a way of being able to see what's going on within his firm without actually having to walk around every 10 minutes and ask everybody what they're working on. So this is a key issue for me. I think that in developing workflow management, it's very important that you develop some form of workflow management. Fortunately, a lot of the client relationship management softwares, Advisor's Assistant among them, have workflow management features already built into the software, and you're in a position of being able to employ this very easily, effectively, and quickly. This is an idea of what the complexity of a workflow could look like. In this particular case, this is a flowchart demonstrating a financial plan procedure that might be followed by a financial planning assistant. And as you can see here, it's very complicated. There are a number of different decisions that have to be made along the way, possible interruptions to the workflow along the way, and so on and so forth. If you didn't have some way of tracking all of this, it would be very easy for things to slip through the cracks and not get done in a timely manner or at all. And so consequently, having a system that automatically assigns and then tracks the workflow step by step is a way in which you can overcome this. If I were to define what a workflow actually is, one definition is that a workflow consists of a sequence of connected steps. It is a depiction of a sequence of operations declared as work of a person, a group of persons, an organization of staff, or one or more simple or complex mechanisms. Well, that's a mouthful full of words in my opinion, but basically it means setting up a systems whereby you can predefine what has to be done with a sequence of steps and then be able to follow through on them and have them automatically occur. As one step is completed, the next one is automatically assigned, and so on and so forth. But in developing a workflow, in my opinion, you need to set up a 3-step process. And this is probably the most efficient way of being able to ensure that you've covered all your bases. The first step is to develop what I call a mind map. Mind maps are a way to sort through your thoughts and then rearrange in a free flow design prior to developing the workflow itself. The second step is to develop a flow chart similar to what you saw on the prior slide. Third step is to actually write the steps, either in a written procedures manual or hopefully in a workflow management feature inside your client relationship management software. This is a mind map example. And for this particular example, I'm using something called a client induction process. And as you can see, there were 4 major things that were identified at the beginning. What are the main steps? What's the engagement type? What are the outcomes? And what package requirements might be needed? This is a way of sorting through those issues and being able to juggle it around. If you have mind mapping software, and many practices I find when I go in and look at what they're doing are already using mind mapping software, and they're using it with their clients. I'm suggesting that you could retest the mind mapping software and use it for internal use with a workflow development process. Here's the flow chart that comes out of that mind map. Again, you see the steps at the top: initial contact, new client package sent, package returned, initial consultation and process. And underneath that is a series of steps. They're not all sequential. Some of them require making decisions along the way. Some of them are consistent with doing things all at the same time, and so on and so forth. So it bears a need, if you will, to investigate what the choices are and how you would develop them. So in developing workflow task sets, there's essentially 4 different types of tasks that may, or task sets that may be developed, and they all may be within the same workflow. Sequential, meaning one step after another. Non-sequential, meaning dependent on some other step, or concurrent with some other step. Decision trees, yes they want to go ahead, no they don't. And loopbacks. One example of a loopback is an issue where I've run into recently with a firm in Washington State, where they had an insurance process where they went through the insurance underwriting process and discovered at some point that the policy was going to be rated, and rather than go the rest of the way through that process, they looped back and started the underwriting process with a different carrier to see if they could get a policy written with a different carrier that wasn't rated. And that's an example of a loopback. But beyond just the tasks themselves, there ought to be some way of tracking the results and having a management reporting system so that at a glance the owners or managers of the firm can look at what's going on globally within the firm and understand what it is that's going on, what is taking longer than usual, and where are the hang-ups and what do they need to focus on in terms of being able to help the staff. So consequently, this can be a great solution, in my opinion, to overcome such things as micromanagement. Here's these type of tasks again so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. Sequential is one right after another. The conclusion of one step leads to the next, and so on and so forth. Non-sequential might be that a client birthday, as an example here, might only be sent a birthday card. Other clients, maybe a client gets a birthday card, a birthday gift, and also a phone call, so on and so forth. It's all dependent on who the client is or what you're doing. Decision trees are where you're making a decision: do we send out package A, package B, or package C, and so on and so forth. So it gives you a sense as to what I'm talking about with respect to the different choices that are available in developing a workflow sequence. And workflow systems, there are some independent choices. Some of them are outrageously complicated. There are 2 out there that I've identified here that might be of interest. Perfect Forms, which is a relatively easy to use independent standalone workflow system, and Laserfish, which is a document management company, and their document management solution does have a workflow feature built into it. The problem with the Laserfish solution, although it works very, very well, the problem is it's not necessarily tied to a client relationship management software, depending on which software you're talking about. And with Perfect Forms, it doesn't communicate with the CRM at all. So having a client relationship management software with workflow already embedded within it, and in my opinion one of the top ones out there as Advisor's Assistant, is a great of great value. And why I consider Advisor's Assistant to be the top one in this category is because they have employed 2 rules in the development of that workflow feature. One is that it is easy to develop and use. That word easy resonates with me because in trying to train staff to utilize workflow projects, it can be an enormous time demander and take clients or staff away from their normal duties during that training process. If there's an easier solution where they can get up to speed quicker and faster and easier, then certainly that is preferential. The other rule that Advisor's Assistant uses is that it actually works. And in some of the solutions that we look at, we find that there are ways in which you can do things, but if you don't do them exactly the way the software was designed, then it doesn't work that well. So consequently, Advisor's Assistant has made it easy to use, and it actually works. Let me show you what I'm talking about. If you're already a subscriber to Advisor's Assistant, then you know that you can go to a client record. In this particular case, the name of the client is John Sample. And by clicking at the bottom on the tab that says Workflow, you can then click Add on the middle left to add a new workflow to that particular client's record. And then the pop-up dialog box that comes up after that looks a little bit like this. Assign a new active workflow. Master workflows are already inside of this software, and I would like to mention at this point that working with Advisor's Assistant, the Efficient Practice and Advisor's Assistant will be adding significantly more master workflows. I also have another source available for you that I'll talk about later, but just know that this is a project that is being developed at this time, that even though there's quite a few already there, there'll be quite a few more by the time we're done. Once you have clicked on that master workflow, whatever it might be, then what you will see, in this case we selected something called New Client, you'll see all of the steps down below, the total duration of the steps, the workflow event type, and even revenue associated with that step. You can then assign a begin date, and you can reassign to a particular user along with a priority. And these things then can be shown in a report form so that you can keep track of what's going on during the course of completing that particular workflow. When it pops back into the client record, it looks like this. And at the very bottom of the screen, you'll see where the new workflow is showing, along with the steps that are in motion, the steps that are still to be done, and so on and so forth. So it's fully accounted for within the client record, but it's also fully available to the staff so that they can see where they are and what needs to be done. And as each step is completed and the next one is automatically assigned, you'll be able to see it on that screen. Beyond just workflow itself, I believe that there is a need to develop projects from a project management standpoint. I've worked with a number of firms over the years that have used project management software, principally the Microsoft Project software, and they've eventually given up on utilizing it because it was too complicated and too hard to understand and work with. Part of that is because it's a professional product that's designed to address the issues that are inherent within a very large organization. Fortunately, though, there are other solutions that you can turn to that are much simpler and easier to work with. And I mentioned before that as I am an efficiency expert, I am by rule a professional cheapskate. So I'm looking at the cheapest solution that I possibly can. In this case, there's a product that's free. It's a Gantt chart software that functions as a project management software, but on a very simple level that allows you to set up a visual, as you see here, in a Gantt chart form that's very easy to look at, to understand, and to track and follow. And for those types of projects that are perhaps not directly related to a client, such as the reorganization of a file room or the conversion of files to electronic form, or things that are one-time type projects that once in place and done, they don't need to be repeated on an ongoing basis, this might be a good way of being able to track that and keep up with it. There's a great saying from Albert Einstein that I have always embraced, and what he said was, the significant problems we have cannot be solved at the same level of thinking with which we created them. I truly believe that to be the case, that quite honestly you need to think outside the box in order to come up with solutions that are beyond what you're doing now. Many firms that we work with have hit something that we refer to as a revenue ceiling. And by revenue ceiling, what I mean is that there is a point, no matter how hard you might try, how many people you may hire, however much new technology you may pay for, that you can't rise above that revenue level, whatever it might be. And usually it's because of the way in which you're managing the operations of your firm. You're not scaling it to the point to where it is at a level that provides greater levels of efficiency, productivity, and net profitability. And frankly, that sometimes takes a third-party perspective. And in doing so, we developed the profit-driven architecture to study those 4 areas that I mentioned in the beginning, but I think it needs to be embraced in the larger context of a strategic planning process and branding initiative, so that all of these things are working in concert with one another and are not conflicting with one another. And to that in mind, I'll revert back to that original statement that I made in the beginning. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got. If there is no change, there is no change. With that in mind, certainly you do not have to face these challenges alone. We can help. That's what EfficientPractice.com is all about. We offer a variety of different levels and types of services to support the increase of efficiency and productivity within your firm. Certainly would love to talk to you about that. Beyond just these services that you see here, we also have a special offer to offer to each of you today. The Efficient Practice offers a newsletter and archive service. It's the industry's leading newsletter with cutting-edge information and commentary, but beyond that, you also gain access to a vast resource archives, which, by the way, includes many master workflows. And beyond that, spreadsheets, documents, template letters, and we have added to that resource spot coaching services where you can throw a question out to us and get an answer within a few minutes, and much, much more. If you would like to sign up for that, then there's a coupon code that I would encourage you to use. It's at the bottom of this slide. It's B89CC. If you use that coupon code when signing up, you will save 20% on the annual newsletter subscription cost. And believe me, it's well worth it. With that in mind, I'm going to turn it back to Shannon, who has a few parting words to say.
Thank you, Dave. That was a great presentation, especially regarding workflows. I know we've had a lot of questions from users asking us overall about workflows, what they are, and how best to set them up. So I'm sure everybody found your information very useful. And the project that Dave mentioned is a workflow library that we're working on that will allow you to share workflows with other users. And Dave has offered to share some of his workflows for our library. These will be available in our new resource library, so watch your emails for more information about the new workflow library. As a reminder, you can use the webinar control panel to submit your questions. So just open the control panel and type in your question, and we'll receive those questions. And as you're entering your questions, I know many of you may wish to contact Dave later if you'd like help becoming more efficient. So I have all of Dave's contact information listed here. In case people need to sign off, I wanted to thank everybody for attending today's Advisor's Assistant guest speaker webinar. I hope you found it helpful and learned some valuable information for your business.